Welcome to Transitions. I'm your host, Antoinette Zloty. I'm very privileged today to have three distinguished ladies here with me on the set who will be sharing their personal stories. We as women are either daughters, mothers, grandmothers, cousins, friends. We're many things to many people. There are a lot of different roles that we must try to meet every day. Today we'll be focusing on women in politics, and first off, after stories are told, we'll look at an artwork that was provided by Danielle Friesen, one of our young artists in the city. And after that, we'll talk about some of the challenges facing women in politics. First up is Anita Neves, then Audrey Gordon, and then Judycorrectly. And first, Anita, you want to share your story with us?
Well, I describe myself, Antoinette, as an accidental politician. This was never a life that I had envisioned for myself. And people frequently say to me, why are you in politics? What was the catalyst for you to get into politics? And I say buses.
Really?
My three daughters went to a downtown French immersion school, and the school board was going to cut the busing. And that was what got me involved in trying to retain the buses for the girls to go to school. So because of buses, that catapulted me into a world of politics. I ran for the Winnipeg School Board. I was elected. I ran several times. I served for a long period on the Winnipeg School Board. I served as chair of the board for a number of years and a number of other fairly significant initiatives, most notably chairing a task force on race relations in the school division, which I think had, well, it's immodest to say it, but I think had a profound impact on the division. From there, I made the move to federal politics. It was not something I had planned on. It was not part of my life's plan. I was by that time a single parent with three daughters and had a fairly heavy load. When a group approached me to run for politics for the federal scene, I took the approach that many women take, which is, no, not me. I couldn't possibly do something like that. And it was at my cottage, and one of my daughters and a friend were listening in on the other room. And the group walked out and they barreled in at me and said, why not? Of course you could do that. So it was some time I thought about it. The election came quickly. The group that had approached me came back to me, and I made the decision to run federally. I made the decision actually in a few days' time because the election was coming quickly. And there I was. And I was a member of parliament until from 2000 to 2011, and it was a very memorable experience.
That's very good. That's excellent. And you had the support of your family, of course.
I had the support of my family. There's a joke in our family. One of my daughters was I have three daughters. One of them was always apprehensive about my being in public life and her being in public life, because one can't fool oneself. What you do reflects on your family. I can tell you a few stories, and I have pictures. When the photographer came to take pictures for the family photo, there is myself and two of the girls facing forward and one of her facing backwards. We didn't choose it, but it became a bit of a joke in the family. But it does reflect on your family. I remember when I was on school board, one of my daughters being lobbied, I think in jest, I'm not sure, by a couple of teachers who wanted to be superintendents. So you never know. They're part of the game as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Audrey? Any similarities or quite different?
Definitely different in terms of how I got started. So most of my friends would tell you I'm very purposeful in the things that I do and very focused. And so when I think back to how the spark was lit for me, I was working in government for several years. And I was asked by the Deputy Minister of Labor and Immigration if I would come over to the Legislative Building to work as his assistant. Well, I can recall doing this and saying, absolutely not will I go over there. And I was asked on 3 separate occasions by him to take up this position. And on the 3rd occasion, I said, you know what, it's all about learning and growth and development. Yes. And so I went over to become his assistant. And I had an amazing mentor in that deputy minister because I was allowed into all of his meetings, whether they were in the building or outside of the building, whether they were with another minister or another deputy minister's office. So I got to really see behind the scenes. Groups coming to meet with various ministers and deputy ministers, and I think that's where the spark was lit, but I didn't know it had been lit. And I went on to work in other positions in healthcare and in immigration. And as time went on and I finished my academic studies, I had been asked on a few occasions to run, and I was always busy either doing a degree or a certificate program. And I was at a gala dinner with the PC party, and I met our premier. And, you know, just listening to him talk and his vision for the province, I said, it's time for me to pursue this path of politics. And so I wasn't asked, which is different from Anita's experience. I put myself forward. And it has just opened up a whole new world for me. And I've very much enjoyed what I've done so far. I ran in the election last year in 2016 as the PC candidate in Fort Rouge. And what an amazing community. I continue, and a matter of fact, I was just there yesterday at one of the churches talking to individuals from the community. And so my passion is still there. Yeah. And I was supported by my family, a host of friends. I have 2 grown sons that worked and door knocked with me and did phone canvassing. So I had a lot of support and encouragement.
Wonderful.
It was
excellent.
great.
Excellent. And we're going to hear from Judy next.
Well, let me just say to Audrey that I hope she runs again.
Thank you.
My passion is about getting more women elected, and that's really what got me started in the first place. When I was going to high school, so I'm before you were even born, so 50 years ago, I looked around and saw very few women in decision-making roles, in powerful positions, and started thinking, this was wrong. And then I had a professor in university who said, you know, politics is the route to power. And power decides whose interests will be looked after and whose will be dismissed. And so it struck a chord, and I decided that I had to be involved in some way. The first time I ran was actually a bit like Anita's, was by accident. I was helping my local association. We found a candidate to run for office. Got to the meeting, the candidate didn't show up. So I ran. But I was 25.
That's interesting.
Hadn't planned on it at that point. I mean, I always knew I was going to get into politics, but not at that point. But it was the best thing I ever did, just to leap in and do it, because, you know, as we all say to ourselves, we're not sometimes good enough or smart enough or know enough or, you know, speak well enough or whatever for politics. But that taught me that we've got what it takes. We just have to figure out a way how to get through the system and win nominations that are in good seats so we can get elected. I got elected finally in 1986 provincially. And it was, I just decided, we just decided to have a family. So my whole career in politics was commensurate with me being a mother and Ron and I having children. So my story in politics, the one I want to tell the world about, and one that I think is really important, is that it is possible to juggle work and family in the political arena. Now it's tough. You know, I had a newborn, a 2-year-old who then turned out who had a major disability, so we had to look after all of that. And then I had the second son born in the middle of a second term in office, and breastfed at the legislature, and went through all the stereotypes and the criticisms and the praise for doing it. But that's that's the story I want to tell. It's sort of what you said at the beginning, Antoinette, about we are women, but we are also mothers, we are grandmothers, we are aunts, we are sisters, we are daughters. And I think politics is about telling women, and this whole job we've got to do is telling women that to be part of politics that is integrated with your role. It's not separate from your role as a mother or a grandmother, but it's taking those issues that you experience in those roles into the political arena, because otherwise issues of importance to the whole world around childcare and about family life and about the environment and about education won't be looked after and advanced the way they should be.
So I think that one of the main things for me in seeing you too and other women in the political arena is that, you know, there's a lot of hope then for the generations that are coming up. Certainly I plan on having a panel of First Nations women, and I'm sure I'll hear from the guys too that they have challenges, as we did with other topics that the guys would like to be heard about. But one of the things that really struck me, I was at Danielle Friesen's place. She's actually my niece, and I was looking at her art, and this one in particular really struck me as a work of art that makes me think a little bit about women and roles, and also politics and women and their roles in politics. And that I just felt like it just seemed like there are a lot of things controlling what we do. Any of you have any comments about the art?
Well, I think you hit it the nail on the head when you said it. It looks like we're being controlled, and that's certainly true in politics. We're very much under these constraints of being seen as not good enough for the job, or not tough enough to make decisions for the economy, and put through a lens that doesn't allow us to be free and independent and give what we can. So I think there's some real symbolism here.
Symbolism, yeah.
What strikes me when Judy was speaking, when I look at that, there's a different kind of control. It's the kind of control of decisions being made about you as women that are not being made with a lens or an understanding of women's experience. And as Judy was speaking, I was reminded of a story that one of my daughters tells, and she told it publicly, that during the abortion debate, we were having a discussion at home on what constituted the abortion debate, who made the decisions, how the debate took place. She looked at me, and she was a teenager, and she said to me, "Do you mean that a lot of old white men will make decisions about me and my body?" And it just sort of hit me with a jolt, and her. And that was the reality for many women at the time.
Yeah. So I guess just with that issue and a lot of other issues where having the woman's voice in the midst of all of the other voices that are being heard in the woman's experience, that's one of the things that we bring to politics is the fact that we have lived it and we know it so very well about the rules and all the pressures on us and so on, and to be able to actually be a part of that is really important. So a lot of the young women out there who are considering going into politics, maybe we can talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that they may face, so that they don't become such marionettes themselves, so that they're not in control, because that's the whole essence of a marionette. A marionette is not in control. There's all these other strings on them. So how to get some control of those strings on you, even when you are in politics, because there's the party line, there's the you've got to still try and balance what you're bringing to the table and what others are bringing to the table. So what would you say is maybe the biggest challenge that women are facing now in politics? Maybe could we start with you, Audrey?
Well, because I have never been elected and haven't served as an elected official, I will talk more about the challenge of your foray into politics or getting elected. And for me, I would say I was a little naive in starting out. I certainly think it's important to have a mentor. And the work that Judy and the other women politicians are doing around equal voice is so needed. And so what I didn't have was a mentor, so someone I can go to and say, what is this really all about? And so I just took it one day at a time, and because I had a background of managing large-scale initiatives for the province, I treated it like it was a project. But soon found out that there was a lot more to it in terms of the commitment you had to make. Your privacy was, you no longer had a private life. That's why it's called public life. And what that meant for your family. And that it's not just about me, it's about my family, it's about my friends. And so I was very naive. Certainly challenges in terms of fundraising, in terms of building a campaign team. I didn't think about that at all beforehand. And what it would mean in terms of just my energy, the level of energy and commitment that was required to door knock. I was speaking at a church about my experience on Sunday, and I said, I was just realizing that I had door knocked through all the seasons in Winnipeg, like all of them. And what does that mean for your strength and your endurance? And so I would say that having a mentor, someone who has been through the process, is very, very important. Yes.
Really good point. The other issue I think that we have to learn to unleash ourselves from is the control of the media, and more particularly social media. So in terms of the media generally, I know that I experienced the phenomenon of being described in terms of the clothes I'm wearing and the hair and my body gestures or my arms, and so on, as opposed to a man often being described more in terms of his issues and policies that he's advancing. So there's a double standard that we have to keep fighting in terms of the media as a whole. But social media, it's the nature, the ugliness of social media, the vile language and the violent kind of intonations in social media that scare women from ever putting their name forward, because why would you go through that? Why do you want to be chastised and treated in such a degrading way? So we have to figure out a way to give women the strength to fight, to stand up against that, to try to put an end to it, and to try to ensure that women are assessed on the basis of their ideas, their issues, their policies, their party platforms, and not on the basis of their personal looks and their hairdos and so on.
What's kind of interesting is that, and this has a little bit to do with what's going on in the media now in the U.S., is that I was watching a program the other day, and there's some kind of a effort being made to give women who are interested in politics an opportunity to learn more about politics, to learn how to even speak in public and so on and so forth. Now this is going on in the States, and it's going on as a result of what's going on in the States. There are women who are actually coming forward because they want to have more of a voice now, and so they're actually taking classes. I don't know about anything like that in Manitoba.
Well,
Have you
yes,
heard?
there is.
There's some of that. Oh,
Judy
well, tell us about that.
Judy and I have been intimately involved in establishing a chapter of Equal Voice here in Winnipeg.
Okay. Can you tell
It's
us
a
about
national organization that's totally dedicated to electing more women. It began in the year 2003 by a Toronto Star journalist, Rosemary Spears, and it took off. And for some reason, we've had a challenge getting a Manitoba chapter going, but it's well launched now, and we're putting on workshops. We've got a boot camp coming up. We have public events for women, and it's all of what you described. But can I pick up on what Judy just said? Because I think the challenges for women are changing today. We've had the challenges of learning how to run a campaign and fundraising and getting the nomination. But I think there's a very different reality that when you can hear groups yell, "Lock her up," which is unprecedented prior to the last 6 months, it has changed the whole tenor and approach to women running in politics. And for many women, I can see it would be very, very frightening for them to put their name forward. It's frightening to put your name out there in a calm environment. But when you know that this is happening, and it's a very different environment, it's not universal, but in many places it's a toxic environment. And I think that makes it more important for women to support women, recognizing that we don't all agree. We don't all sing from the same song sheet.
That's right.
But we value the involvement of women's voices in politics, and we have to support each other.
So that's two sides of a coin then, in the sense that with what's going on, it has caused some women to become more active.
Very much so.
And then on the other hand, they see some of the awful things that can happen to women in politics. And it's like you have to go into it not expecting that everybody's going to like you, right?
Well,
That's for sure.
not in the best of circumstances.
You've got to be really,
thick-skinned.
You've got thick skin,
And have
try to do
mentors,
the right thing,
and
try to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
When it all comes down to it, right? If you're representing people,
Absolutely.
you're going to try to do the right thing.
You mentioned before about covering men's issues in terms of politics on your program. Perhaps there's reason for that, but I think the fact that women still only represent 25% of politicians says it all in terms of the need to focus on getting women involved in politics.
In all levels of government.
At all levels.
But we have to bring them on board with seeing that too, the men on board with that, as opposed to just recruiting somebody that they're playing squash or tennis with, and who are in the business world. Maybe look at some women who, mostly we've been in the humanities, right? A lot of women gravitate to the traditionally women professions, but now they maybe need to look at some of these women as very good options, and some of the men need to start supporting them.
Sure, education of men in terms of changing their attitudes toward women and working to support women is very important. And for women, I think it's also a bit about learning how to play hardball in this world of politics and be very strategic. I didn't get elected back in 1986 without deciding to challenge a sitting MLA of my own party. And I learned that, in fact, men are always lined up, ready to run in the good seats, and for women to run, you've got to be, you've got to really be, tough or very patient, and usually that means losing out. And so it is about being as strategic as men, but not adopting any of the negative aspects of politics, the bullying, the nastiness that you see so often in the House of Commons, but instead bringing the good traits we have as women to the political arena of listening, of cooperating, of consensus building.
So thank you so much for coming in today. I really have enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you for doing this.
I will have to come out to one of your coffee shops and sort of rub shoulders with these, very learned ladies that you are. And our guests at home, or our viewers at home, we're so happy that you could join us again. Please visit our website and take a look at some of your the previous episodes or your favorite episodes, and we try to post as much information on the website as possible. So take care, and we'll see you again soon.